You know, you can learn a lot from other entrepreneurs and people through society. You can figure things out. So I want to talk to everybody about my experience of selling on eBay for the last 15 years. So this is going to be a longer form discussion video of, simply put, people ask me, Rudy, I want to sell magic cards. Can you tell me what's involved with selling them? Whoa. Here's the thing. I'm going to go over a kind of a longer form conversation in this type of setup. Standing bookcase, office location here. And I want to kind of go over a few things on kind of what's happened to me over the journey of 15 years of starting on eBay and where I see things going and why it's important to learn about this changing evolutionary culture, e-commerce, social media, modern economy that we are going into, everybody. And I really do believe, as an overall stereotype, I know it sounds terrible, but we ain't seen nothing yet. So, as of the filming of this video, I finally broke 40,000 unique feedback on eBay. And a while back ago, I broke 100,000 plus transactions on eBay. Now, of course, eBay only counts the feedback by individual people. So I've had over 100,000 transactions by 40,000 unique buyers. Because many buyers, the repeat buyers, they buy 10 things at once for individual magic cards. So the numbers are a little different. So I want to kind of first start off with the positive. Overall, in the last 15 years, I've made a good amount of money selling magic cards on eBay. Starting from the very early days, my goal was always to make $200-300 a month. When I moved out of my parents' house, legitimately moved out of my parents' house many years ago when my first house was built in my mid-20s, my goal was to make $200, $250 a month in eBay profit to pay for my utility bill. That was my little personal goal. And that's what I did. And, I actually achieved that. I averaged $200-300 a month. And it's kind of funny how I set the goal for $250 a month. And it was funny because for the first 6 months of really expanding and selling singles on eBay, I literally profited exactly that $200-300 range. I thought that was kind of coincidental. So I don't know if that's like a psychological thing because I set the bar at a certain level, but it was an interesting learning experience. Then eventually the next big wave in eBay was me selling collector's video games, vintage video games, a lot of unique limited collector's edition video game things. And then as time went on, I was doing a lot more magic products. Sealed products is what I mostly focused on. Selling, booster boxes of Fallen Empires. Selling, I know, don't make fun of me. Selling sealed boxes of Mirage for like $150, $200. Selling boxes of Alliances for maybe, $180. I mean, just, it's kind of, I know it sounds ridiculous. But I started selling sealed product. And then as things expanded and my relationships grew with distributors about, I'd say starting 10 years ago, when those relationships really started to expand, that was when I really started to move into doing the mass box opening on eBay. And eBay was my number one source of unloading the single cards from mass box openings. Keep in mind, the very first 2 sets I did mass box openings on, and when I say mass box, I mean large box openings. I'm not going to say, well, actually, technically the first big mass box openings that I did was actually Core 2012. Was the first time I started doing like 300 to 500 booster box mass box openings. And they were profitable. It was successful. It worked. On average, I was making about 20% on the initial upfront capital. So if I spent $50,000 on booster boxes, when it was all said and done, I would return $60,000, and I kept the foils. You guys remember that old thing from years ago, for those of you who've been around my channel for a long time. It was a very interesting learning curve, and that opened the doors for me for a lot of things. Relationships with eBay, relationships with PayPal, learning some very small things about disputes, the resolution, bad people, good people, how to navigate, how to reply, how to message when people are coming at you with a lot of anger. You stole my money, you sent me a fake card, you forged the signature, did you trim my card, did you reseal the, I learned a lot many years ago, way before YouTube even started, about how to kind of handle a lot of this stuff. And that's my first takeaway to let everybody know is, my advice to anyone out there who's really looking to sell magic cards or flip video games or sell anything, convert sealed product of sports cards or Magic or Pokemon into singles and sell the singles and try to net a higher amount than you did on the seal, any form of that stuff. The first thing is you're going to run into some bad people out there. I always tell everyone you need to budget for a 1% fraud rate. So if you're going to sell, I know this is terrible sounding, if you're going to do $100,000 in a year in gross sales, you need to budget for people stealing $1,000 from you on eBay. And that is, especially if you're selling cards under $10 and you're doing just stamp and envelope for a $3 card, a $6 card, a $4 card, a $9 card. You're genuinely going to get some people that genuinely are just going to steal the card when they realize there's no tracking. And of course, you need to create your own block list. You need to remove those people. Now, many times it's funny when you go back on your block lists on eBay, you'll actually see those people have been permanently banned from eBay from doing it to other people, because eBay does track that stuff. So you have to remember that. And when they ban you, it's not easy to always just remake an account, especially in 2019. The way they trace IP addresses, they do certain things. There's a lot more systems in place than it was 10, 15 years ago to get away with things. So that's the first thing. That's a very difficult hurdle, and that's the number one hurdle that makes people quit selling on eBay, is when they get hit with a bad person, a scam, a faulty return, which means you sold them a $20 magic card and they shipped you back, an empty box of paper or a brick or something stupid you always hear stories about. While these stories are real, they're very unlikely. And you can't overly fixate on that stuff to give yourself anxiety. And if you are, selling online is already not going to be I would not recommend going down that path. So that's the first big thing I really want to talk about in this. So this is a major reflection video. I haven't really done something like this talking specifically about eBay, but I feel so many people want to sell things and try to start a side hustle and do something. I feel it's worth a conversation to kind of discuss with everybody and give you guys my long-term experience over 15 years doing this stuff. And 100,000 transactions is, I think, a pretty good sample size with 40,000 different people. I think if that's not a large enough sample size, I don't know what is. Especially if it's all focused in mostly Magic. Over 90% of that is just Magic cards. So that's the first thing. God, there's so many things to talk about in this video. I don't even know where to start. The next thing I think I'm going to go into is the feedback system. Obviously, as everybody knows on eBay, buyers can leave sellers feedback, but sellers can no longer leave buyers feedback as of about 5-6 years ago due to feedback retaliation, which was a stupid thing, all this crap, which created a more difficult, dangerous marketplace, because now there's no way for me to leave negative feedback on a buyer to warn other people that they do shady returns or things. We have no way to mark their account. But of course, eBay says, well, no, because it would just be feedback retaliation, and we didn't want that. So that was the first thing that I always thought was the first sign of things that made me really, this is not a good direction. And then, of course, as the years went on, the fee structure continued to go up. The eBay store fee, which is, right now I pay the Anchor store on eBay. I pay $300 a month just to have my listings on eBay. Even if I don't sell anything, I pay $300 a month in fees. It sucks. But one positive aspect I can tell everybody is recently, in the last probably 24 months, eBay now sells shipping boxes with their branded logo on it. And I know you're thinking, well, how is this beneficial? Well, when you pay the $300 monthly eBay fee, they're now giving you $150 a quarter every 3 months. So you get $50 a month in money towards eBay shipping boxes. And the boxes are cheap. They're crappy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say they're high-end like Uline and other cardboard companies that have better quality grade and structure and all that and strength. But $50 a month in free cardboard, and the price is about the same as other major box sellers online, maybe a quarter a box, 50 cents a box, typical thing. Overall, it helps soften the blow. It helps me because I ship a lot of sealed product. So that really did help kind of reduce that 20% of that monthly fee, because I'm getting it in the form of cardboard that I would have had to buy anyways. So that was one positive thing I can say out of all the years and changes that have happened so far. Moving forward, with the higher final value fees and the listing fees and the way things are, and this new things with the PayPal not returning when people cancel their orders, you lose fees, even refunding money. The system's getting more and more difficult. And I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. And that's probably the most negative thing I hate to tell you guys about this. Overall, I think the future of e-commerce is not bright like a lot of people believe it was. And I hate to quote like a lot of the financial entrepreneurial books that I do read a lot of times, but when you read some of these old finance books, like this one, I'm not endorsing any books, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but I've been reading that one. I'm almost done with that. That was the one I just most recently finished reading in the last couple days. And that is a book based on pretty much the people who started AOL. So this guy, Steve Case, and his story of trying to build America online, the internet, how people didn't believe him, the negativity, the buyouts, the competitors, the Apples, the Googles, the Micro, and the stories of behind the scenes of what you never had any clue what really happened. So anyways, I really do believe, though, we are past the golden age of e-commerce. We're past the window of first to markets in wealth creation where the easy money's been made. I think that window is honestly, it's done. I really do. Because the number one thing I see now is people just saying, I don't want to sell on eBay. That's why you see people selling collections of Magic cards. And shameless Rudy plug, the reason I have the support from the patrons is because a lot of the patrons like to buy cheap stuff directly from me due to the fee structures elsewhere. A lot of patrons just like to ask me questions. Communication. And when you factor in just some people want to buy cheap stuff, other people don't want to buy anything, they just want communication for somebody who's going to tell it how it is. That's where kind of the Alpha Investments empire continues to thrive and do real well. And just like my YouTube channel, I do believe, me kind of being first to market on a finance investment magic channel, which before me doing this, nobody ever thought of that. Nobody really said, hey, we need to invest in Magic cards. Let's talk about it publicly. And of course, when I did that originally and I was first to market and it blew up and became a big thing, a lot of people it created a lot of anger. And as we see here, we are years later, most of the people on these internet and the message boards and things are still very angry at, my channel as a whole, even though we don't, most of the people, I don't even know who they are, or it doesn't really mean anything. But when you look at everything, the fact remains. The 90s was the computer boom. The 2000s was this internet boom. And then now with the smartphone, mobile revolution, microtransactions, the raising of shipping costs, e-commerce, the fee structures with eBays and PayPals and TCG players and Amazons, and the shift of all these moving parts are never in favor of the seller. So, which is why, again, when you see my YouTube channel and all the Magic stores around the country, most people prefer to sell their Magic card collections to someone like me or another large store or a large entity, because the risk compared to doing it on your eBay and injecting a lot of time just isn't there. And this is a very important thing to understand about in this eBay video, because, unless you've really been through the gauntlet and sold a lot on eBay, you're not really going to fully understand the psychological and the mood swings, the anger, when people hose you and you get those messages. It ruins your night. If you sold a case of Modern Horizons on eBay for $1,000, I have no idea, $999.99, and somebody buys it, and then all of a sudden, 4 weeks later, a month later, you get a message on eBay. This person opened a dispute saying not as described, and you're thinking, not as described. You bought a sealed box of Magic cards. You got it 4 weeks ago. What are you... Immediately, you're going to go from suspicion to anger, because you know as well as I do, if someone buys a sealed box of Magic, and you sent them a sealed box of Magic, and they're going to say, well, not as described, I need a refund, or I need compensation, or I'm going to send it back. You already know where this is going. And unfortunately, again, for those of you who out there who have engaged in those type of things, you need to be very careful. Because there are stories out there when people do that to the wrong store, the wrong person. People go after people. I mean, if you're a small, struggling card store and you try to hose them for money and you damage them or their family or the business, I mean, there are stories where people get so angry, they take the address, they go after the people and they confront them, they find them. And it's the same thing with situations like me. I get targeted by bad people all the time. And a lot of people don't understand why, well, God, Rudy doesn't reply to that message, or I don't know, I guess I have to be a patron behind a paywall to talk to Rudy. Well, no, it acts as a filter from people daily trying to offer or submit things or sell me things or sponsor the channel or just dumb things, and I'm just not interested in. It is what it is. Then other people just fish for information, and then all kinds of stuff in between. So when you look, let's go back now, that's just my speech. Let's go back to eBay. So when you look at what's happening in the future direction of eBay and all this stuff, when I reflect on the 15 years and all this stuff of doing eBay, I see a very difficult future for eBay and for sellers and e-commerce as a whole. Because the cost of shipping is always going to go up. The cost of the fees on eBay, TCG players, and Amazon.com, they're never going to reduce the fees. Let's get this out in the open. There's never going to be a day we're going to wake up and you're going to see news headlines saying, eBay cuts their fees in half. Like the brokerage firm and the Robinhoods and versus E-Trades and Ameritrade and Schwab. And you're not going to see that in e-commerce. Now, maybe I'm wrong, which would be amazing, and something black swan event happens and forces a change. But unfortunately, I don't see it happening. Because the track record of the last 20 years, the fee structure has only gone in one direction, and I have no motive to believe they're going to reverse. And this is a continuing thing, like I talked to you guys about in many categories, like Wizards raising prices on Magic cards. You know, they're going to keep ratcheting up one click slowly. And as the shipping prices, eBay prices, or eBay fees, and PayPal fee structure continues to get more aggressive, it's gonna make people stop. That's what it is. And the companies are so big they just don't care. And if you believe that the companies care about you as a seller or you as a buyer, you're wrong. You're just a number in a database. And that is the cold, hard, nasty truth about e-commerce with these massive companies. And I always hear these stories too. Rudy, I called eBay. I called PayPal. I called to try to talk to them. And it was like it was like talking to a wall or talking to my goldfish. That you could tell they were answering from a script. They wouldn't help. It was just, right, because their employees getting paid just enough money to show up to work and they have just enough training to answer the phone. They're not trained in unique situations, in specific, it's just not, it is what it is, everybody. So, and again, I'm not really trying to pro or con eBay. I'm just kind of spewing my reflection of my thoughts of just everything I've experienced. And I've met a lot of amazing people through eBay, by the way. A lot of the amazing people I work with and I do deals with on the side, you know, was because I did so many deals with them through eBay. You know, they eventually just contact me, you know, directly outside of eBay. And, you know, I'd lie if I told you that wasn't a thing. That happens all the time. Not really anymore, though. This happened, not because people just use YouTube now for me, but that's a big thing also. And because we're in an era where everybody's very fee sensitive. And that's always been an issue with eBay, and they try to catch people trying to do outside transactions and all that. And it does go on, but it's really not that big of a thing. Like, even when I look back at all the transactions I've done, out of 100,000 cards I've sold on eBay type thing, honestly, I'd probably say not even 1% of extra transactions were done outside of eBay from eBay. So you know what I'm saying? It's really not that major of a thing because it just doesn't happen that often. And especially nowadays where it's very difficult and eBay tracks it and can ban you, block you, it's really not a major issue. But of course, eBay will tell you it is a major issue. For me, for example, I've been able to use YouTube and Patron as a platform, so I'm able to go direct to consumers now because of my YouTube presence. But most stores don't have that ability. They rely on local walk-in traffic solely. I rely on local YouTube and eBay. I'm kind of split out, which makes a big difference for my situation. So, anyways, as far as eBay's future, I really don't think, you know, with the rising fee structure and the disputes and the tilts against the favor against sellers and the rising monthly fees and the higher postage costs, I really don't think, like 10 years ago when my goal was to sell things on eBay and start out as a new seller, you know, 15 years ago when I started, but 10 years ago when I really started to try to make a bigger thing with it. You know, I just don't think that mindset is going to be there if I was starting out today. Because I don't think I could start out, I don't think I would be as successful in Magic if I started today. Because the actual playground is different. The rules are different. The fee structure is different. And I really think that's a big thing, which is why I think the end of the glory days, the golden era of people starting websites and selling online is over with. And I know many people will disagree with me, but as a whole, I do believe that era is kind of, that chapter is done. We've evolved to another direction. And I don't see that direction getting any more friendly towards fee structures and consumers or sellers or anything like that. And then when you factor in all these big companies trying to inject their different political views and stricter regulation, it's even more challenging. Because as every extra layer of rules and challenges and hurdles that are added, all it does is make it more difficult to succeed in selling or building an online presence. Because think about this now. And again, 10 years ago when I first started doing major selling and single cards on eBay, you know, if one person claimed they didn't get, maybe they didn't, I mailed a $3 card in an envelope and the envelope didn't make it there because it was just a stamp envelope for $3. Well, you know, they got mad, or, you know, I'd say, hey, no big deal. I'll give you another 99-cent card for free in your next order. Try to help you out. Okay, cool. Other times, whatever, we'll meet you, we'll work something out. Well, nowadays, again, we're in an era, it's, you know, I bought something for $5 from Rudy. He didn't send it to me. I'm going to go online. I'm going to make sure every negative review on the internet, I'm going to bash him on every message board I can find. I'm going to find out every location he has ownership on in stores. I'm going to go across the country and I'm going to riot in front of his buildings anywhere he's located. And now it's become this huge, like, burn it to the ground pitchfork attitude that is known as the negativity of social media, which you guys have heard me talk about many times, of how I just think it's a terrible thing because nobody promotes the amazing things that happen every day. The only thing we hear about are tragedies. And it's really crappy because there are amazing things that mankind does every day that nobody wants to hear about until someone does something wrong. So when you wrap all this together, I truly just don't recommend a lot of people who are starting out now go this direction or start selling online on a small scale because the odds are just stacked against you. Now, if you're really committed and you got a bunch of capital behind you and you really want to make it work, there are people who are still going to make it work. There's always going to be outliers. But the majority of the bell curve, the main standard deviation, that big block of people in the middle, that main clump is going to have a bad experience trying to do that. Which is why stores, buy lists, people like me, other YouTubers, other large magic companies tend to absorb and grab a lot of, you know, magic collections because of the peace of mind, the risk. And as far as myself, you know, I don't really know if I'm going to continue doing the eBay thing in the next couple years. Because there's many times now with my business with the patrons directly, I'm just selling cheap product directly to everyone who wants it. The YouTube channel, working locally, meeting people, online, Patreon, YouTube. For me, I'm very fortunate that I think I'm almost at a position where I may walk away from eBay pretty soon. And that's a very lucky, fortunate. I almost want to just say, you know, it's just a fortunate situation to be in that most sellers can't do. And I don't have the confidence in a lot of these platforms in the future. I really don't. You know, when I look at everything over that long time horizon, nothing on that scale is continuing to improve. Everything just slowly drips lower. And when I say drips lower, I mean the money you can make as a seller, the cost of shipping things as a seller, fraud online, the new fee structure with PayPal. You know, and I know I keep bringing up the same few things, but it's a really big deal. And especially if you're a big scale seller through eBay, for example. And, you know, I just don't know how much further we can push certain things to the point where, you know, it's even worth for sellers to sell online through eBay. 'Cause, I mean, if eBay fees eventually, let's say they average 15% one day. In PayPal's, they're, let's say 3-4% or 5%. If your fee structure keeps dripping higher over the coming years, and then your shipping continues to go up 5-10% a year, there's going to be a point where it's simply just not worth the time. If I have a leftover, I don't even know, a $20 video game, in the fee structure, if I sell it for $20, you know, well, back in the day, shipping would cost me $1.80 or something. And the fees would be maybe, you know, 7% or 6% or 5%. I don't remember 10-15 years ago. And, you know, if on a $20 sale, I could net $16 after shipping the item and everything versus selling a $20 Nintendo game now. And I know I'm using this as, you know, people say, well, just sell a more expensive thing. I know there's going to be a lot of people, I'm just giving examples. If you sell a $20 game now, and after just eBay, PayPal, let's say it's, I don't know, let's just make it even 13% or something for most people. You know, and you lose, on that $20, you lose immediately, I don't know, $2.50. And instead of paying $1.80 or $2 to ship it, you're paying $4 now to ship a little game. And eventually it's going to go to $5 or $6. Suddenly that $20 that you netted $16 on a $20 transaction, now you're going to net maybe $10 to $12. you see my point? Where on the same item, and now of course, well, maybe the item goes up in value more, and that compensates it. And this is the one thing that a lot of people who bash me about sealed product long term, that is one of the things they do get right. Because, you know, with the increases in fees, people say it's not worth the time. And they're right to an extent where we can't predict how good or bad those fees and the direction is going to go. But we all know, like I said, one thing. It's only going to get in a more negative, worse direction. We're not going to wake up and say, hey, post office cuts all shipping rates by 20%. What a great day. We made too much profit. Do you see? And, you know, I just don't know how much it's going to keep pushing that direction, because anybody who's doing this stuff now, ask anyone who's been selling e-commerce for a long period of time. They're going to tell you the same thing. The days of the good, quick, easy money, good margins, they are so long gone, it's insane. And I truly think we're going to evolve to a whole nother era. And it appears to be a lot of things with streaming, subscription-based services, and different type of prepaids. It's a whole different model of things. And of course, marketing and everything comes from advertising online versus running television and radio stuff. You're seeing a lot of moving parts nowadays. A lot of breakthrough and changes in technology with different touch screens and AI and, you know, electric vehicles in the industry. You're seeing these industries really being disrupted. And it's going to spawn new millionaires and billionaires, and it's going to take down large old companies that are stale, run by old guys. And my concern is I don't see eBay being a place of the future that's going to remain to be very successful like they were in the past. And that's kind of my speech and reflection of it. And like I said, overall, I just have nothing positive to say about the fees, the shipping costs, which I know are not eBay related because they don't really manage that, but they kind of do because they negotiate the shipping label rates with the post office through their platform. You know, the cost to list the things, the monthly store fees, the way they handle disputes, the way they handle fraud. There's just, you know, they are so obsessed because they're publicly traded and they're focused only on short-term gains and they don't care about long-term, which is going to lead me to my next long-form discussion in the next week here, which is going to be, you know, I think the reason for all of this and the direction of eBay and a lot of these websites is because the people running them make decisions solely based on short term, because they know their careers are short term. People who work in corporations and move up in boards of directors and executives, they're usually not there 10, 20 years. They're going to make decisions that profit them mostly based on their tenure that are going to be there. And which leads to this huge society, capitalism, don't want to get into it, but it leads to the entire society and the e-commerce world that we live in to be based around people being greedy and making short-term decisions at the expense of taking down the ivory tower in the long run, which is always something I spend a lot of time thinking about because you don't know where that breaking point is going to be and you don't know really what that does long term. But I can tell you one thing. It's never good that we live in a continued culture in an internet era that surrounds on negativity, raising fees, more hacking and scams and fraud, and of course, the people running the system base all their decisions around short-term time horizons, and they don't care what the long-term impact is. So that's kind of my takeaway. I know it's a little drifty all over the place based on eBay video, but overall, you know, I just kind of feel disappointed. And nothing really bad happened to me by eBay or anything like that, but it's just something overall. I'm just not very excited about the future of eBay and e-commerce. I'm really not. And I'm very pessimistic about the direction of people running it, trying to just make their growth rate and their profit go endlessly to the sky. That's all I have. Hope you guys learned something today. I have some more videos on this, but I just kind of wanted to share kind of my overall thoughts.